I want to express some regrets from Councillor Martel. He's away this evening. On to item 2. Any items to be added to the agenda by unanimous consent? There's one, the Alan J. Regional Airport, Alan J. McCachran. Any others? Need a motion to approve the agenda with the item added. It's been moved by Councillor Boucher. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gayesh. On discussion. Questions called. All those in favour signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. On to item 3, review of the minutes for the May 13th meeting, 2019. It's been moved by Councillor Gayesh that we approve the minutes for the May 13, 2019 meeting. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor McLean. On discussion. Questions called. All those in favour signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. On to presentations. Our first presentation is the Bredor Lakes Biosphere Reserve Association and the Collaborative Environmental Planning Initiative. The Climate Change Adaptation, June 18 to 21st, 2019 in Badak and Wagmatcook. Guys can hit the left-hand side of your mics. Yeah, hit hard on the, no, just hit once, Dora.
That's it?
Okay.
Okay.
Are you speaking first?
We are, I'm Teresa McNeil, and,
Yep.
and this is Don Crosby, and
Yep.
we are both actively involved in the Bredor Lake Biosphere Reserve Association. But as you see on the agenda, there are 2 organizations named there. The other is Collaborative Environmental Planning Initiative, which is an organization out of Eskasoni, into which, or around which, to which all of the municipalities of Cape Breton Island, the province and the federal government are all contributors to their program, okay? And it is pretty important. It's all about the Bredor Lake and the maintenance and development of it. And our organization, the Biosphere Reserve Association, and Don Crosby will later go through our deck of slides, and he will tell you more about biosphere. But I want to mention to you that I don't think any of you in this room were present. The several times I've been here in the early 2000s as we were trying to rev up some interest in the biosphere, in an application to UNESCO to have the Bredor Lake and its watershed declared a world biosphere. There are in the vicinity of about 650 of them in the world, and it's quite an honor to have that designation, and we have gotten it. And at that time, there was quite a different slate of people around this table, these tables, and John Boudreau was, I believe, the warden at the time, and we had super support in terms of our application, which only had to be no financial support there, but certainly an understanding of what it was about and an agreement that this would be a great thing to apply for. And we always had excellent support from Richmond County. By the way, I am from Richmond County. And what else do I want to say? It wasn't always the case. We had a lot of trouble with Inverness, but that was because they thought that it was going to cut out mining. Biosphere reserves don't do that, and as Don will show you in a minute. So together, this organization out of Eskasoni, which we call SEPI for short, and the Biosphere Reserve, are together here tonight to tell you about what we have planned and also to leave with an ask. Just to let you know that we're not here just to give you information. We're going to end up with an ask. So I'll leave it then to Don. Don Crosby is not from Richmond County. He lives in Benyon, not so far away. Go ahead, Don.
You can hit.
Now I know how to use the buttons.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. Thank you very much for having us. Really appreciate it. Don't hold it against me. I'm from CBRM. That's the way life is, you know. Where you're born, that's where you land. Actually, I'm from Glace Bay, so watch out. Okay? Good. The Bedore Lake Biosphere, as Teresa already said, is making a proposal on adaptation to climate change in Canadian biospheres. And this is going to be held in Bedeque from the 18th to the 21st of 2019. The proposal involves both the biosphere, the BLBRA as I'm going to call it, and CEPI. But before we do that, I want you to have a look at what the biospheres are really all about. There are 18 UNESCO designated biospheres in Canada. As you can see on the map, they're spread right across Canada and into the north. As a matter of fact, the last one is the one from the north. We were the 16th. And I'm going to say this as an aside. All of the biospheres before us had money from the government to take care of starting up. We got nothing. We got nothing from the government. And we're 20 volunteers full-time that take care of everything.
Don asked me to warn you.
Your mic, Teresa, I'll put them both on. Just leave them. Don,
Can we
put
leave
yours
them both on?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Don asked me to warn you, and I forgot that I might cut in from time to time, and we are really on pretty good terms, you know. So don't take it as opposition. What I wanted to say when he brought up the point about money, we just got in at the wrong time. It's not that there was something negative about us, but you may have noticed that there was a period of time here and around 2010, so on, after around 2008, when we had a different government that decided it was not going to be giving any money to biosphere reserves. So we just lost out. That was it.
And I guess my point is that we're 100% volunteers, working 100% of the time. As a matter of fact, I've said from time to time, if they paid me for this, I'd quit. And I mean that. Anyway, the biospheres are areas of exceptional natural history where people see themselves as part of the ecosystem. And basically, that's what we're trying to encourage. We're trying to make sure that we showcase sustainable development. We don't overfish. We don't do any of those things. We try to make sure that everything is in balance. We also consider the needs of nature as well as the needs of people. So if we have to open a mine or if we have to do anything else related to that, we try to make sure that the proper steps are taken to make sure that when the mine closes, we don't have the same kind of a situation as we've had in places like Glace Bay or New Waterford, okay? And we want to make sure that these companies are held to account for the whole thing, not just take the money and run. Currently, these needs of nature and of people are being largely compromised by climate change, and that's what we're here to talk about today. It's the biggest ecological challenge facing humanity, as you well know. You see floods, you see fires, you see degradation, you see invasive species, and all of this can be, to some degree, related to climate change. Since 2018, we've had 3 winters with extreme heat waves in the North Pole, and we know, for instance, that that's caused a great deal of melting of the ice cap. So we have to learn to adapt to this climate change that is beneficial to nature and to people. So we need to employ what we call realistic adaptation strategies, both now and in the future. So that we explore examples of how people in Canadian biospheres are currently adapting to climate change. We recognize that adaptive action is happening at the local level, and we consider totally new adaptive measures. And then what we want to do is to package those ideas into an educational program aimed at all Canadian communities. But we have to clarify the difference between mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation describes all actions taken by humankind to reduce greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. So we know, for instance, that LED light bulbs produce more light and less heat and are more cost efficient and in the long run than fluorescent or incandescent bulbs. but they still use the same source of fossil fuel-produced electricity. On the other hand, when we look at adaptation, we're describing actions taken by us to deal with the impacts of a changing climate. And an example of that would be the Confederation Bridge, which was built at a higher elevation to take into the account the effect of future sea level rise on ship clearance under the bridge. So what we're proposing, and what we're basically headed for, is a forum of all 18 biospheres where all of the representatives from the biosphere will be able to share examples of the programs and strategies that consider reconciliation with the land and the water, as well as reconciliation with First Nations, settlers, and their descendants. So we do this through social enterprise and the use of social capital. So our social capital is made up of ourselves, the Biosphere Reserve Association, the Biosphere Lake or SEPI, Unimaki Institute of Natural Resources, the Stewardship Society, the Bedore Lake Preservation Nature Trust, ACAP, or the Atlantic Coastal Action Program, the Alexander Graham Bell Family Trust, Environment Canada and Climate Change Canada, and Parks Canada, Fisheries and Oceans, the Bedore Institute for Ecosystem Research at CBU, and the International Institute for Sustainable Development. We're all together in this partnership, and therefore, with that partner, we are planning the forum that I've previously mentioned with the Canadian biospheres and others to focus on climate change adaptation. And that will be held in conjunction with the annual general meeting of the Canadian Biosphere Reserve Association. So what we're trying to do is highlight the benefits of the SEPI process, which involves multiple levels of government, all of the municipalities, the provincial and the federal government as well. And we have a relationship with the Unimaki Institute of Natural Resources, and of course, we also have a relationship with the 5 Indigenous communities in Cape Breton. And this unique collaboration, of SEPI, we work on an adaptation for climate change from the perspective of what we call two-eyed seeing. Now, two-eyed seeing basically aligns one of the SEPI objectives to understand, educate, and promote awareness and action on the impacts of climate change, including mitigation and adaptation. As you all know, the Indigenous people have been here for 6,000 years. We're running for maybe 400 years. So they have a lot in their oral tradition that they can give us to help us pull this together. So we are again saying that we are going to do a forum on climate change adaptation, representatives of the 18 biospheres, all Cape Breton First Nations, and the 3 levels of government in Badek. Actually, it's in Badek, Wagmacook, and at CBU. Yeah. So all 3 areas, from the 18th to the 21st, and to recognize realistic adaptation strategies using 2-eye seeing, using the social capital, and basically, we have limited funding, as I said at the beginning, and therefore we're trying to make sure that we get all of the municipalities to join us in a commitment of consultation and collaboration to realize adaptations to climate change. So we want you to join us in this and pull it all together for the sake of the next 7 generations.
I'd like to add a little bit. We first applied to come here in February. And that would have been much nicer to be presenting then than just before we're actually going to pull off this forum. At the time, it's still true, but it's much more polite to come and say we'd like contributions of money, if at least giving some months of warning. But various circumstances, including the April meeting, I think it was, when we were to come here, there was a storm. And it so happened that we both were in Halifax, not together, but, we were, well, for various reasons.
I was cat sitting.
He was cat sitting, and my husband and I were there for a couple of months. Anyway, the point, we could not see getting back from here with that storm, and as it turned out, we were quite correct. Now, what I wanted to say about funding, I've spent a lot of time this winter going to see how it's possible to get contribution from the province of Nova Scotia to help us with this. Our budget is in the range of, and Don, you would correct me on this, in the range of 150,000.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so we're really a hard time finding the funds for this. Not locally so much, but through where we expected, first and foremost, that Environment and Climate Change Canada would be interested in this because it's on the subject. However, our purpose, and we did apply, right? And we applied actually last September, but we did not get the funds we applied for, so we've had to go then looking. We are going to make it, but with a lot of volunteer work. Just we've not even been able to employ a coordinator for the whole effort. And when Don said it'll be in Badek, Wakaba, and in did I say Wakaba? Wagmacook. And Cape Breton University. The way it's set up, we open up on the morning of the 19th at Imbury Inn, the morning of the 20th at Wagmacook, and the morning of the 21st at CBU, and the whole thing will be capped off at noontime at CBU on the 21st with a feast that is representative of all the good things that the Eskasoni SEPI, that's SEPI, every time we refer to it, that's the organization in Eskasoni, okay, that they can pull together, and because it's National Aboriginal Day, and we hope to have a big gathering at CBU at noontime that day. So that's filling in a little background. Don, do you want to pick up from there?
No, just if you have any questions, I'd be willing to entertain anything from anyone.
Any questions from anyone? Councillor Gayash?
You mentioned you had funding requests. It was from the federal government. Did you request any funding from the provincial government?
Yes.
And what are your sources of funding at the present time?
I'm going to ask Don to answer that. I have a pretty good idea, but he's the treasurer.
Okay, CBRA, which is the Canadian Biosphere Reserve Association. You want to know the amounts?
Well,
okay. Parks Canada, Victoria County, CBRM,
The cooperators.
the Cooperators Insurance Company. We have a number of individual people who've given us bursary amounts for we want young people to come to this. So we have about, I think it's 15
Yes.
bursary amounts for people to register.
And the registration is $200.
Yep.
If you pay it by check. Don't pay by paper.
Let me think. I'm thinking.
And I think to answer you, Mr. Goyash, a little bit, yes, we are expecting to get money from the province, but we do not know that we will get it. And how this worked out is by going through to Environment, Nova Scotia Department, through forest, what do we call natural resources and forestry, whatever we're calling it these days, and to the culture, community culture and heritage. And community and culture heritage is the place where our application is now resting, and that is on the advice of the other two departments. So we're kind of assured that we'll get money. It would be in the range of $10,000 to $20,000 if we get it. We're getting awfully close to the date when we need it, but and we're kind of still sitting here like that.
And the Indigenous communities have also contributed an amount as well.
Yes.
I'm still thinking.
Mm-hmm. So we're patching a lot of stuff together. It's not one fell swoop. We're just, and including the 15 contributions of $200 each. It's a matter of going to you and saying, would you mind giving us $200 to pay for a young person's registration for this thing, you know? And we got 15 of them quite quickly. People didn't have trouble doing that.
I guess my the question I was asking, and you answered it, but when you expect different funding partners,
Yeah.
and not only all across Cape Breton, but you got the federal, provincial, that means you have a budget already prepared.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And you know exactly what you're looking for and what the contributions are from
Absolutely.
different.
Right,
ACOA.
ACOA. I forgot ACOA. I was
That's
thinking up
very
here.
important.
I was thinking of ACOA, and yeah, we got an amount from them as well,
Okay.
24.5, actually.
Kind of conditional in a way.
Well, it's, yeah.
On
it's
the
a
fact that
sliding
we would
scale.
have,
Anybody who knows about ACOA knows
contributions
that.
from other sources. And also that they only fund certain things, certain aspects. They don't fund for accommodation and they don't fund for meals and that sort of thing. Yeah.
So I guess my last question, would we get a budget or of any kind, or something that we can gauge whether or not what the other
Yes,
units are doing and what the
Yeah.
contributions are from?
yeah, I can send that to you as soon as I get back home, because I forgot my phone.
Don't send it to me, but you can send it to the CEO.
Okay.
Sure.
Don Marchand, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any questions? Any other questions?
Yeah, I have some, if there's no others. You guys speak of the mines and any,
Okay, right. Yeah.
yeah, and I guess any environment any industry that's going to damage the environment, exactly what ability do you have to do something?
Educational ability.
Okay,
Yep.
but your comments were to hold them accountable
Yeah.
at the end, and
Well, when we go into social capital, we talk about other groups that have the ability, like the Stewardship Society has the ability to lobby. We can't lobby. We're not
Oh.
allowed.
Under the terms of UNESCO,
We just
That's right.
educate.
it's about education. But the Stewardship Society, the Perdor Stewardship Society, is an independent voluntary organization, and so therefore has the ability to lobby. But SEPI does not, because of all its funding coming from various government sources. We don't have funding coming from any source, but still UNESCO prohibits any biosphere reserve organization from lobbying. But we do give out, by the way, charitable.
so you aren't asking for money then? You're not
Huh?
lobbying. You're not
Oh,
lobbying
that's
us
a
for
good
money.
question.
What's he say?
Yes, we're not asking for money.
Oh,
You're not
We
allowed to
are.
lobby.
oh, I said there would be an ask.
There is an ask. We want $1,000, to be blunt.
So you say that you think you're going to meet your budget? You mentioned 150, but that'll be reduced a bit?
Oh, we have already reduced some of it because we got bad news Friday. Yeah, and we're working on it. But
So
we
what's,
need the
if food and accommodations aren't being
No,
looked
food
after?
accommodations and travel are not being covered.
Okay, you people are not covering that for people coming from away?
Well, we have some donors who will cover it, like Zebra will cover that.
That's
Zebra,
Canadian Association of Biosphere Reserves.
So
Yeah.
they're 24,000 you can put against that?
25 they've given us,
Okay,
okay? When you see the budget, you'll understand exactly where the money's coming from. But the fact of the matter is, when we talk to ACOA, they will not fund accommodations, and I understand that, accommodations, meals, and travel.
I just think you say 150,000 for this 3-day event,
Right.
it's quite a bit.
Yes, it
So I'm
is.
just wondering where all the expenses are.
Well,
But like you say, when we see the
Well,
budget, maybe
yeah,
it'll be broken
it
down.
will be
He
there.
can tell you though.
But approximately 15,000 is in the product, because our whole purpose is to develop a set of guidelines for use in all communities right across Canada. And we're going to do that in conjunction with CBU, so that we produce that and we send it out to, first of all of the biospheres, because of course they're involved in it initially, and then from their use of it and the things that you have to do when somebody takes something new and innovates. If there are some changes to be made as we go along, then that has to be done as well. See, our view is, as I said, education. And if you look at it, the whole process is innovate and reconstruct, and it's a loop, and you go back and forth. And that's essentially what I see it as happening.
My experience over the winter going to a few offices in Halifax was that even there, it takes doing to distinguish between adaptation, adapting to climate change. In other words, saying it's a fact, so where do you put your buildings? What do you do about forests? You know, that sort of thing. People learning how to make changes in the way they live and conduct their business and their homes and so on, in light of the fact that weather is changing, and you know, that sort of thing. It's adapting. So we're going to take examples from across Canada through this forum and end up with these guidelines that would be used in communities for education purposes. So it's a pretty ambitious goal we had, and you know, the $150,000 budget was pretty easy to come by for it. You know,
I'll give you an example.
and we have resource people coming in, you know, that we have to pay for as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. We have a gentleman from Brazil, and we were going to pay they will pay for speakers, and they're going to pay his way up and back and all the rest of it. So how do we cut that? He's doing it by YouTube. He's going to give the presentation by YouTube.
That's cutting back.
That's cutting back.
By the way, he's not just somebody.
So the 150 is a cutback version?
No.
So it's a lot less than that.
We had to cut that. We had to cut.
Yeah.
We had $10,000 for speakers. We had to cut that out. So now all of our speakers are gratis. Thank God. And that's how we've done it.
Okay.
So when you
Even
see-
our facilitator, although we have a budget number in for a very excellent facilitator, we're told, you know, it's a person who is very experienced, because that's going to be the big part of this, pulling all these ideas together into a set of guidelines. It's not just like going to a conference and listening to a speaker. The afternoons are spent at workshops. And so,
okay.
I don't think that there's so much to this that it's hard to explain in a few minutes, but the mornings are about giving information, so everybody can attend. But if you want to be part of building this set of guidelines, you register to be a participant in the workshops in the afternoon. And so that's where the product comes. And I started off to say that the facilitator we have for that is, we understand, super duper. But she is willing, if we have to forego her pay. You know, that, so because there are people realizing what we're up against. Good question why we've had so much trouble getting the funds. You know, we'll probably figure that out come October or something like that. Because now we're so determined that it's going to happen, we'll just make it happen. You know?
Yep.
With your help would be great.
Okay. So
Thank
we
you.
don't expect a decision tonight, of course, but we really would like to hear from you soon, and I will make sure you get the budget. Okay?
Okay, so you'll email that to the CAO
Yeah,
and
that's correct.
he will send it to us. Okay, any more questions? Thank you both, Don and Teresa, for the presentation.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for
Bye.
hearing us out. Thank you.
Okay, on to item 4B, which is a presentation from the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors, re the deed transfer tax. You can hit the left side of your mic. Hit the left side of the red button. Okay, and your name for the record?
Okay. Good evening. My name is Robert Wombolt, and I'm here representing the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors this evening. The association represents 1,500 realtors, real estate brokers, and salespeople from across the province. The association's mission is to enhance the success of realtors by providing services and representation to enable them to best serve the public in real estate transactions. The association also acts as the voice for real estate in Nova Scotia. Because the real estate industry impacts our province economically, environmentally, and socially, NSAR and its members have a responsibility to recognize this in all aspects of what we do. Realtors' commitment to quality of life, ensuring economic vitality, providing housing opportunities, preserving our environment, protecting property owners, and building better communities. A little bit of background on the deed transfer tax. Deed transfer tax applies to homes sold in all but 2 Nova Scotia municipalities and towns. The rate is set by the municipality and ranges from 0 to 1.5% of the purchase price. The deed transfer tax must be paid within 10 days of purchasing when registering title. And we understand it's an important revenue stream for many municipalities. The deed transfer tax, though, can be a financial burden to buyers at the time of purchase. The deed transfer tax affects the affordability of homes for first-time home buyers. And the deed transfer tax, the revenues are more volatile and difficult to predict, and which may cause instability for municipal budgets. There was approximately 10,568 properties sold as of November 2018. We're looking at a modest increase in sales and prices and approximately 10,620 homes sold. The average year-to-date price in the Cape Breton region is $138,000 as of November 2018, and in the Cape Breton region is 1.5% paid per household at an average rate of $2,081. The average spin-off spending per home is $46,714 per transaction. In 2018, the sales are estimated to contribute $513.8 million in spin-off spending. Municipal tax revenues will be another $29.2 million in 2018. Residents will ultimately benefit in a number of ways, including reduced financial burdens at the point of purchase, ability for more appropriate family budget planning, an incentive to remain in home communities or invest in Nova Scotia neighborhoods, increased ability to provide immediate needs, and extra money for increased spin-off spending. That never come up. I don't know what happened. There it is. No? I guess that's it. Here we are. As you see from the example here, house A, $110,000 market value, a first-time home buyer with a 5% down payment, and that's with no deed transfer tax at closing. So the person would save $1,650. The municipality charging 1.5% deed transfer tax, $110,000 market value, there would be $1,650 deed transfer tax at closing. So there's no savings there, and there's no extra spin-off dollars. That's with a $5,500 down payment. What we're proposing is that even if the municipality looked at doing this over a 5-year period, so let's say $110,000 market value, there's a 5% down would be $5,500 down payment, and then the deed transfer tax paid $330 per year over the next 5 years. So the savings at time of purchase would be about $1,320. Benefits to the municipalities: reduce fluctuations in budgets, higher retention rates for existing residents and attraction of new residents, boost in local economic benefits related to home purchase spin-offs. Realtors are asking councils and councillors to officially express support for deed transfer tax changes through the Municipal Government Act to NSAR and the Minister of Municipal Affairs. This can be done by council sending a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, council making an official motion to support changes to the deed transfer tax. Thank you. So what I guess you can see from the ask, we realize that there's no way that the county is going to look at eliminating the deed transfer tax, and we're looking at this for only first-time home buyers. We're not looking for this in general, just for anybody that's a first-time home buyer within the municipality. If the deed transfer tax could be spread over 5 years rather than at one point at time of closing, so just make it a little bit easier. The way the regulations are now, and for people anybody that knows anybody that's trying to buy a house for the first time, it's very difficult to borrow money in the first place. It's difficult to come up with a down payment, and then there's all these closing costs, with that being one of them, the deed transfer tax. So I mean, I realize it would be more accounting work for the municipality to do that, but that's the kind of an ask that's what we're asking for. If you can consider it.
Thank you, Robert. Any comments?
questions.
Councillor Gayesh?
Yes, Robert, I know you said that the deed transfer tax, across the province, there's 48 units
Yes.
that have the deed transfer tax in place. And,
The two that don't is the town of Kentville and the municipality of Kings.
but as far as municipal budgets, I don't think that affects the municipality. It's an estimated revenue. And actually, you base it on last year's market, what you received from prior years, and you estimate that you're going to get pretty well much the same thing, but it doesn't create a problem as far as revenue for the municipality. But what I'm worried about, and I know that deed transfer tax is part of the associated costs in buying a home. I mean, we all know this. First of all, when you're a buyer, there's an appraisal value that you do. You got to pay for that. There's lawyers, and there's the migration costs and there's the real estate fees. That's included. There's the surveying costs and recording the documents. And people know this, and anybody that I heard that complained about the deed transfer tax. It's a one-time tax, and you make arrangements with your lending institution that anytime you buy something, it's the same as buying a car. If it's $40,000, I don't borrow $40,000. I borrow $46 because I know I got to pay tax on the 40. But I'm concerned that if we do change, and not only a recommendation right now, it says to extend it over a 5-year period. That means extra work to our accounting department, whereby you'd have to set different accounts, collectibles, and I think we'd have to change, I'm not sure, Mr. CAO, but our bylaws, whereby these rates did become automatically a receivable over a 5-year period. So you got to set separate accounts for different people that are under this process of
Yes.
deed transfer tax. And then if you change the bylaw, of course, you have to make it whereby it becomes a lien on your property. If you unpaid taxes, it
Yes.
becomes a lien. So when you got that process also that's involved, you'd be involved in the 18% surcharge we have on unpaid. So I'm just wondering where the percentage saving would be to a person owing the transfer payments and extending it over a 5-year period. I don't know
Can I-
where the,
Can I comment on that?
sure.
I mean, the whole idea with this, Mr. Gayesh, is that this is just for first-time home buyers. There's about 53 homes sold last year in Richmond County through the MLS system. And I think the value was around $8 million. And we're looking at just the first-time home buyers. We're just those people that are just starting out, that are buying their first home, not somebody that's bought 2 or 3 homes, or somebody's coming in investing in property. We're looking at the person that's buying the first-time home and looking at extending that, let's say in a $100,000 house, it's $1,650 over a 5-year period. I would hope, I mean, we weren't considering that you were going to charge interest on that money. I would hope you would just extend that over to collect it over the 5 years. That percentage of those 50 or 60 people that have bought houses this year in Richmond County, the percentage that are first-time home buyers would be very low. We wouldn't be talking about a whole lot of money. So this is something we're trying to do across the province. There's a lot of municipalities where this is a big dollar item, and other areas it's not as high an item.
Yeah,
But-
because I'm looking at Robert, whereby nobody complains about this, and the biggest thing when you get investors or people want to buy a home in a municipal unit or want to invest in a municipal unit, what the first thing they look at is not what they pay for lawyers' fees or recording fees or anything. It's what the tax rate is. That's an attraction to people from outside that want to come into a municipal unit. And I know it's a one-time affair, but I mean, you're not going to put down your real estate costs in order to give them a break. And
course
you're
we
not
do it
going
all
to
the
cut down your appraisal costs to give them a break. We don't expect that. And I don't think owners, when they go and purchase something, they know there are associated costs with these things. And I never had any complaints about anybody, not to me anyway, and maybe they did to you. that's my only comment.
And what we're looking at is, and not necessarily people coming out from outside residents, it's people that live within a municipality, so people in your own districts. If you have somebody that's a first-time home buyer, I'm not saying everybody's in that position, but a lot of people, it's really tight for them borrowing money to buy their first home. It can be very, very tight.
It's really tight to buy your first-time car, too.
Any more comments? Robert, can you explain the first-time home buyer again? Like, if it's someone coming from away, I got the impression that you're saying no.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. There could be somebody coming from away and it's their first home they're buying too, but.
How would you decide, how would you judge that? Like, if it's someone that's had a home in Ontario and sold it, retired, and it's coming here, do you say over 20 years you didn't buy a home, or
Yeah.
because,
Well, look-
somebody older, you would assume it could potentially be their second or third home?
Yeah. There's a program set up by the provincial government that's come into effect for first-time home buyers to help with the financing on it.
Mhm.
And they have certain kind of rules and regulations, and you'd follow the same rules and regulations that they have for a first-time home buyer. Anybody that's buying right now within the county, there's money set aside for first-time home buyers now that they can apply for through the government. I would say you could use the same rules and regulations as those two.
Okay, explain a first-time home buyer then. I'm just wondering, because you mentioned people within your community, people within your county is who you'd give it to.
And I meant, let's say.
Like if it's someone wanting to invest and buy
If somebody
property.
moved here from out of province, or let's say moved from another municipality within here, they're starting a new job here, it's the first home they're buying. And I didn't mean that it had to be somebody that lived here all their life was buying their first home. It could be somebody coming from a different area also.
And what's behind bringing this up? Are you losing sales because of the deed transfer tax?
No, no.
So why is
Well, because
provincially?
I guess because financing is gotten a lot tighter for people that are buying properties. It's difficult for people now prices are up. You
Yeah.
know, the down payment process is a little trickier now, and CMHC and Genworth are not as easy. They're not lending money as easy as it was before. And sometimes they're looking for more money than the 5% down. And this is just one way to kind of help. The $100,000 house probably isn't as bad as if it's $300,000. And then you get into more money because you're into, $4,500. But it's just, and we use $100,000 because it's easy to figure it out. But if you're buying a $300,000 home and it's $5,000, that's all that much more money, And if you're doing 5% down, it's a $15,000 down payment. When you're starting out, that's a lot of money to come up with right at the start. It really is.
For the deed transfer tax?
Yes. Yeah.
How much support are you getting across the province?
It's hard to judge. You leave I did a presentation in Inverness County. I'm waiting for Victoria County. I'm only doing the 3 local counties. And I don't know. I'm going to be at a meeting next Monday, and I'll know more then when I attend the meeting there just in Halifax to see what's going on.
Okay, so you're not expecting anything tonight for sure?
No, definitely not. No.
Just for information's sake.
Yes.
Any more questions? Councillor Gayesh?
I think if I was to decide or a council decides to make changes, I would not go with a change to extend it over 5 years. I think that's too much workload to the accounting department. It's a difficult process to administer. But I'd be willing to look at changing the rate from 1.5 and look at that aspect instead of going to putting the workload on the accounting department, whereby you got to set up different ledgers, different books or accounting procedures, and probably look at the rate itself. And I know what was last year's deed transfer tax.
385,000 we took in.
385. And we budget this year approximately
375.
375. Okay, but
So it's
that's the
considerable.
way I'd be looking at it instead of extending it over a 5-year period. I think that's too much.
Okay. Any more comments? Thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, we need for item 5 on the agenda, a notice to amend the purchasing and tendering policy. in order to increase the limits. So it's been moved by Councillor Gayesh that we,
You have to read the actual amendment or just amend the purchasing?
no,
Okay.
it's a motion for a notion, for notice to amend the purchasing policy in order to increase the limits where public tenders are required. It's been moved by Councillor Gayesh. It's been seconded by Councillor Boucher. On discussion. Questions called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. On to item 6.
Item 6 is regards to the low income tax exemption. I did a little bit more work on the listing that we got from the province. Checked some thresholds, and they seem to be basically between 20,000 and 25,000 seems to be the norm. I also checked the amount of the rebate, which was roughly between $100 and $300 per application or per household. I did some work on the census reports for Richmond County for the year 2016, and it appears as there are 770 households that have an annual income of less than 25,000, 520 households that have an annual income of less than 20,000. It's hard to figure out exactly how many would be eligible and would apply. It would certainly depend on how many of those incomes were related to rental units, how many would have their taxes paid in full, because that would certainly be a part of the application process, and also whether or not we would extend the application to households that qualify for the provincial tax rebate. I did check in a few other municipal units, and it appears that roughly around 20% of total households are eligible for their rebates in their areas, and so that would basically reduce those numbers of 770 to about 154, and the 520 to about 104, below 20,000. So essentially, it's pretty difficult to tell how much it would cost us, but we do know that if 100 homes apply and are eligible, and we give a $100 rebate, well, certainly is going to be $10,000 as a cost to the county. And of course, you can go every 100 for 200, it's 20,000. Every 100 for 300, it's 30,000. I guess to be safe, and if council does want to adopt a low-income tax policy, it would be safe to start off perhaps with a $20,000 threshold, $100 rebate for those applicants, and then evaluate the program on a yearly basis, see what the actual cost is, perhaps raise it, raise the threshold, raise the rebate, depending on how many it would apply, of course, would be the determining factor in our costs. And of course, it's not something that we would be able to do this year. It'd be only something that would take effect for 2021.
Any comments or questions? Councillor Boucher.
Thank you, Warden. Well, Don, I thank you very much for digging into this, because I'm sure we have a lot of people in Richmond County that have a very low income. And I would certainly be supporting something for 2021. And like you say, a start of $100 for $20,000 income sounds very reasonable to me. Something that we could budget easily. Thank you.
Any more comments? Councillor Gayesh.
Yes, Don, when you mention low income, does this also, you don't make any mention to seniors, old age people that currently receive the provincial rebate?
Well, no, I guess that would depend on whether or not council wants to extend the program to those people.
So you're not talking about seniors, whatever, that receive a current rebate provincially, you're talking about?
No, it would be anybody that wanted to apply, any household.
So that would include seniors then?
Yeah, it would, but it would be up to you as council if you wanted to include the people that are receiving.
But the reason why I'm bringing that up is that if you do include, and the seniors get a rebate currently under our system, whereby if they qualify for, or if they receive income supplement,
Yes.
they do get 50% from the promised in Nova Scotia rebate. Now, if we extend that program, that means that the promise will be saving money from Richmond County instead of them paying the brunt of it. We'd be the guy given an exemption, and then what they qualify for the rebate provincially is the amount of taxes they pay locally. If it's $100 that their taxes, and we give, for example, a 25% exemption or $25, what they would qualify for to the province would be $75, based on the $75 remaining, $37.50.
50%.
50%, $37.50. So the
Yeah.
province is saving money, and we're losing money.
They essentially save 50% of the rebate that you choose.
The province would.
Well, the province
Yeah.
would, yes,
So if you choose a
Yeah.
$100 rebate, they'd save 50.
They'd
If you
save
choose a
50.
$200 rebate, they'd
Right.
save 100.
and we'd pay.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. But that's something we have to look at, and I accept them on this. I agree that we have to look at the low-income families in Richmond County, but we have to be careful when we qualify those that are currently receiving the provincial rebate, that we don't overlap. And I think the province can afford to give rebates bigger than what a municipal unit can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ganesh. Any more comments? Well, I guess it definitely, it's something we need to look into, and maybe the CEO can get us some policies that other municipalities are using, and we can adapt those to have the exceptions that are needed to suit the citizens of Richmond. Everyone's okay with that? Okay, move on to correspondence. Item A, which is the Straight Richmond Palliative Care. So I'm just going to read a letter that we did receive from, in May, from the Straight Richmond Palliative Care Society. It says, the Straight Richmond Palliative Care Society is very thankful for the generous donations from the municipality of the County of Richmond in the past couple of years. The committee has been formed to update the two rooms, a committee has been formed to update the two rooms at Straight Richmond Hospital, which serves many palliative care patients and their families. Some members of this committee have visited the palliative care units at the Aberdeen Hospital in Glasgow and the Cape Breton Regional Hospital in Sydney in order to gain insight as to what would best serve the needs of palliative care patients and their families in the Straight Richmond Hospital. We have purchased some chairs that turn into beds for family members, comfortable chairs for family and friends who visit. Bedding has also been purchased for the beds in the two rooms. The committee is looking at purchasing a bariatric bed that would extend into a 3/4 size bed so family members could also be able to lay down comfortably with their loved ones who are dying. This bed is quite costly, but we have had numerous requests for it. Members of the committee met with the hospital administration to look at the guidelines for purchasing equipment. In light of the exorbitant cost due to the hospital standards for equipment and furniture, etc., we are again looking for your generosity for any additional funding that you may be able to provide for this project. This will allow us to better support the patients and families at this critical time of their lives. So this was sent before the budget, and I believe staff will be sending Terry, this came from Terry Boudreau, who is the chairperson, the information that $10,000 was passed in the budget for the Palliative Care Society. Any comments or questions? Okay, on to item 7B, which is a road name change.
Well, actually, I believe it's just a road name application from the Eastern District Planning Commission. It's for a new road, for a road name off of a new lane off of Pepperell Street in St. Peters, and it's the submitted road name is Portside Lane. And I guess we'll require a motion on that.
Any comments? Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Boucher that we accept the road name application for this new road in a residential subdivision or development, I guess, in St. Peters. This is right behind Louis, I guess. The application has the developer's name as a signator for it. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor McLean. On discussion? Questions called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. On to, for information purposes, and at the Lucedale Lions Club 50th Anniversary Charter Evening on June the 1st, there was a certificate of appreciation presented to the municipality from the Lions Club, and the CAO accepted it that evening. It's the same one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. And it says this from the Lucedale Lions Club, Certificate of Appreciation. May it be known that this certificate has been presented to the municipality of the County of Richmond in appreciation for the invaluable services and cooperation extended. And this was presented by King Lion Gary Sampson on June the 1st, 2019. So I think everybody has a copy of it included in the package. On to item 8, which is a review of the check. So if you have any questions or comments, just you can email the CAO and he'll try to address those. There's no questions now, is there? Okay, on to item 9, which is the item that was added to the agenda. And this, I think everybody has read this, and this is, I guess this email. It's kind of a precursor to a letter that's supposed to follow from Mayor Brenda Chisholm-Beaton from Port Hawkesbury, and this was in relation to a funding application for a private airstrip, I guess, by the owner of the golf course, I guess, in Inverness. And this person is looking for some provincial and federal money, and I guess the application is at the federal government. And Mayor Chisholm's concerns were that the Alan J. McCachran Regional Airport in Port Hastings was refused money from ACOA for some navigational upgrades and some landing strip upgrades or runway upgrades as of the last number of years, I guess, the 2 applications that were put in. So she has concerns that this airport doesn't receive any federal funding and provincial funding, so I guess we'd like a motion, I guess, to support the mayor's and wardens' letter, I guess, to the province and the federal government against providing provincial and federal monies for a private airport that could definitely hinder the airport in Port Hastings. Is there any questions or comments? Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Boucher that a letter of support be provided to the mayors and wardens in regard to this issue of federal and provincial funding for private airport. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gayash. On discussion. Questions called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion carried. On to item 10. Going in camera? No. On to item 10, which is the 15-minute question period. Anyone wants to come up? Going once. Going twice. Done. Need a motion to adjourn. It's been moved by Councillor Boucher. Is there a seconder? No. Seconded by Councillor McLean. You're out. On discussion. Questions called. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Meeting adjourned.